So after a bit of research online, I've decided to do the EGR mod to my Nissan Navara D22 2012 model. It's a pretty straightforward process, and I just thought I'd show you how it's done. So the first thing you need to do, making sure your engine is cool, is you need to undo the bolts here, and there's another one underneath there, and then the two bolts here and behind there. And then this piece here will come straight off. Got a bit of a work light set up here, but it hasn't taken me long to realise that I actually need to take this battery out in order to get to the back bolt behind here. So I'm going to have to do that first. A 10mm spinner will do the trick. You are also going to have to disconnect your leads to the battery terminals. Now with the battery out of the way, you can see it's a lot easier to get to those two bolts. One up the top and one down the bottom. A 12mm socket will do the trick on those two. To get to these two bolts, you're going to need a 14mm ring spinner to get over these strange looking bolts. These nuts are proving to be a little bit more difficult to get off. I had to use a larger ring spinner as a lever on the smaller ring spinner to get this one off. But I've worked out that you can probably use a 14mm socket, and to get the one behind the back you'll need a 5-inch extender bar or longer to be able to get in there, and that'll do the trick. So now the EGR pipe is off. You can see up here all the soot from the exhaust that are being rerouted back into the engine for recombustion. So that's what we're going to prevent now, so only clean fresh air goes in. We've probably done a lot of hard work by now, so I highly recommend you go get yourself some refreshments to see you through. I've just used the vernier calipers to measure the thickness of the old gaskets that came off there, and they were 1mm thick, and I've got myself some 1mm thick old bit of tin off cut that I'm going to use, trace out these gaskets onto the sheet metal and cut her out. Decided, because this is coated, it was off cut from a house build, that it's probably best to remove the paint that's on here. So I've just applied a bit of paint remover, and I'm just going to wait for that to do its job. I'll scrape it off and I'll have it back to bare metal. That way there's no chance of the heat from the engine doing some kind of damage to this gasket that I'm making. I've just simply traced out the two gaskets, obviously not including where the old holes were, and I'm just going to cut them out with an angle grinder and tidy them up and drill the couple of holes. So it's taking me about half an hour, but the blanking plates are done. So I decided to put a small bead of gasket glue around these, just to make sure I get a good seal and I don't get any of these fumes back into the engine bay. So now to put the template back over, just slots on. Like so. See, it's sitting on there nicely. It's going to be a bit awkward doing this while holding the camera. So that pipe goes back on to there. I'm just going to leave that hanging there. Hopefully this gasket glue will keep this new blank in place. Goes on there like so. Take the bolts through there. And on it goes. I'll go through and put the other bolt back in behind there, and the two nuts down there. Tighten it all up and see how it goes. Oh, I have to put the battery back in before I do anything as well. That's back on there nice and tight. Double, triple checked. They were back to approximately the same torsion as what they were when they came off. And as you can see, you wouldn't even know that the mod has been done. So battery's back in, time to put the bonnet down, turn the ignition on, make sure there's no errors, and see what difference this has made. I've just got back after taking the Nissan Navara D22 for a test drive after installing the EGR valve blanks. What I did notice, certainly no change in the bottom end, nor in the top end, but mid-range has become a lot more snappy and responsive. Any D22 owner knows that if they're sort of crawling along and they put their foot down, if you want some power, you really got to put your foot down. But I found with the EGR blanks that the response in the mid-range is much better, and I don't find myself pushing the vehicle as hard as what I usually would have to get the power out of it. And this is pretty consistent with my understanding of how the EGR valve works. From my readings, the EGR valve does not engage in low range, low RPM, nor does it engage when you're under full throttle, but it does engage in that mid-range. And where I've found the improvement in the engines and the vehicle's performance is certainly in that mid-range. Nothing groundbreaking, but certainly much more responsive. And all I can say is anyone else that wants to give it a try, I highly recommend it. Took me about a couple of hours. The longest job was obviously making up the blanks themselves. I think you can buy these online fairly cheaply if you want to save yourself a bit of time. If you're wanting to do this yourself, and I haven't explained myself very well somewhere in this video, feel free to shoot me a message on here and I'll do my best to respond.